Hi, this is Lejeune, Mind, Health, and Wellness with Lejeune. You guys are going to be astounded by my guest today. Her name is Carrissa Kai. She is a trauma informed body transformation coach and founder of Keep Me Curvy. I love that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Can you tell the people about yourself and give a background about who you are?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that introduction, and that was really kind. So, my name's Carrissa Kai, and like Lejeune said, I am a trauma-informed body transformation coach and founder of Keep Me Curvy. I am a social work trained. I also have a master's degree in understanding domestic violence and sexual abuse, so gender-based violence, and that really was around the interplay between domestic violence, sexual abuse, and mental distress. So that's sort of my educational background. As I was sort of entering, the world of work, I decided that I actually wanted to be a domestic violence advocate. So I worked with women in, refuges and in the hospital who had been abused and who were coming through the doors. And then I sort of transitioned away from that and I went into working with children. I actually managed children's homes for a little while before, doing a little bit of social work. And then I actually had a bit of a breakdown because I hadn't resolved the trauma from my past. So I'd sort of, had this really traumatic childhood, had a lot of like really traumatic events go on in childhood and hadn't resolved that trauma before going on to work with people who were experiencing trauma. So all of a sudden, I've got this really high pressure job and I just, broke down. So that was in 2020. So it was like at the height of the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was all just too much, right? So I'd always struggled with my weight. Like since childhood, I was always the chubby girl, always ate too much, like always being overweight, but it was almost manageable. Like I was like, I kept it at a decent size. Like I wasn't too big, but I was still chubby. When the pandemic happened and I sort of, had the breakdown, I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost everything basically. Yeah, and I sort of turned to food. Like food was always a comfort for me, but at that time it just accelerated. I really did start eating and eating a lot. And in the course of maybe 6 months, I'd put on about 6 stones in weight, which is like 84 pounds. So I was, yeah. So I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I was anxious. I was like riddled with anxiety, panic attacks. I was depressed. I was suicidal. My mental health was in a really, really bad way. And then at the end of that 6 month period, I sort of, it's almost like I came to my senses. I looked at myself and I said, okay, so you've lost everything. You're at rock bottom. Your body has got to a point where you don't recognize yourself when you look in the mirror because you're so big. What are you going to do about it? And it was a real struggle to really climb out of that ditch that I felt like I was in at the time. Yes.
Um, I can relate to so much of what you just said. It's something I think a topic that most people don't discuss because it's the fear of being judged, of the what happens when you hit rock bottom. It looks different for many people where they turn to food or they turn to alcohol or they turn to drugs, or it could be the opposite of they don't eat, they isolate themselves. Just so many factors within that. So I thank you for your vulnerability of sharing that because, that is a kind of a touchy topic because people start looking at, okay, wow, that's my story.
Mm.
Um, so at what point for you that you made the decision, you know what, I don't want to keep living like this. I don't want to keep this weight on anymore. What was that breaking point for you where you said enough is enough? Because for most people, it may be chronic illness. For most people, they look in the mirror and they're like, oh, I'm done with this. Hell no. I'm tired of buying bigger size clothes because when you start buying bigger clothes, it starts to get more expensive.
Yeah.
So, what was that point for you where you were like, enough is enough?
I think for me, at that point, I didn't have a choice. So it was a choice between you either get back up and you get better, or you stay on the ground and, you know, who knows where I would have been. Like, I didn't want to be here. So it was, I had to look in myself in the mirror and say, you know, actually, I want another chance at life, because I felt like my life was over. And I said to myself, I looked at myself and I said, I want another chance at life. And I'd lost weight in the past, so I knew I could do it because I'd done it before. So I was like, right, you can do this, you know what to do. And I set out on a weight loss journey, but actually I, through that weight loss journey, I healed from the past, you know, because I knew that emotional eating was a problem. So I was like, okay, I need to really get to the root of the problem, and I need to sort out what's going on inside. So that was a part of the journey. And then also, like, you know, healing from anxiety and depression, and, you know, doing all of that work. And that really, I started out on a weight loss journey, but it was like a transformation journey in terms of who I was as a person. So yeah.
And I think that's something that we deal a lot of time with, even clients that come to us. They'll say, well, I lost the weight before, or I did this program, or I did this, or I did that. But it's the inconsistency where they end up gaining all the weight back, or they end up gaining a larger amount of weight, more than where they were before. So, you know, as you touched on that, what was it? And also, you're touching on so many things that people don't touch on. Everybody wants a quick fix.
Yeah.
Everybody wants, I want to lose it now. I want to lose it now. But they're not looking at, okay, let me heal what's going on internally so my external can match
Yeah.
my internal. And we're not trying to make the two come together. We're just trying to make the outside look pretty, but the inside is just dark and dirty and broken.
Yeah.
What was it for you where you said, you know what, enough is enough? I need to heal my inside, because my inside is affecting how I'm looking outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's twofold. So, as I mentioned earlier, my master's degree was in understanding, you know, domestic violence, sexual abuse, gendered abuse. And one of the books on the course that was like recommended reading was The Body Keeps the Score. Have you ever heard of that book?
Yes.
Yeah, so in that book, he speaks about a study that was done by a researcher called Vincent Filletti. And he found that actually a lot of women who were obese, and men, but women primarily, who were obese had got that way because of sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and that the weight was like a barrier. Now, I understood that because I'd read that book, but then I'd also listened to a lady who I love called Lisa Nichols, and I'd read her book in the past as well. And she said that she was wearing her weight as a barrier, and she didn't want anyone to come close to her because of like a relationship that she was in. And that's why she put the weight on. And it wasn't until she'd unpacked the emotional stuff that she was able to take the weight off, the jacket of the weight off. And it was the same with the women in the study. When they healed from the trauma, they were able to say, okay, I don't need this weight anymore. So I looked at me and I was like, right, why have I got this weight on? And it was literally just a protective barrier from the world. The bigger I was, the harder it was for anybody to get near me. And I'd been, like I said, you know, I've been in so many harmful situations where I felt like I'd been in danger from different people, and just being a bit bigger gave me the feeling of safety, you know. And I had to really unravel that in my mind and say, actually, no, Carissa, you are safe. You know, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in God, and I strongly believe in God. And I said, you know, God's got you. And it was that faith that got me through as well.
I think that's, you know, definitely huge, because I think a lot of people look at, okay, I'm trying to put this barrier on where it's the weight. Um, if I'm attractive and I've been sexually assaulted, or I've been in a domestic situation, I'm less likely to attract someone that's interested because of what I've experienced. And sometimes that, you know, and it also looks different, because for me, I was sexually assaulted and molested. And mine wasn't weight. I wanted to be skinny. So after a knee injury and trauma and things that happened, I ended up gaining the weight. So, I just wanted to point out for other people who are struggling with some type of trauma, it can look different for different people. It's not the same for everybody. And just because you skinny don't mean you healthy, because there's a whole bunch of skinny people out here that are unhealthy. So
Yeah.
just want to, kind of touch on that. Can we talk about the population that you serve, and why did you feel that it was important to reach out and help that community?
Mhm. So when I started Keep Me Curvy, it was almost like I'd worked backwards. So I'd done it for myself, and then I all of a sudden woke up and thought, I've got something here. I've got something that works. I've got a process. It's step by step, and I can take other people through it. And actually, I didn't know who I wanted to help. I wanted to help everyone, right? Because as women, that's what we're like. We want to help everyone, and I still struggle with that sometimes. But I actually had, a mentor, and she was saying, right, Carissa, who would benefit from it? Who's gonna be open to it? And then I thought, well, as a Black woman, I know how important it is for me, especially to have safe places where other Black women are, where we all have sort of similar experiences, similar life and lived journeys. So my primary client base is older. So when I say older, I'm not saying old, but older than me. So I'm 31. My client base are actually women who are 40 to 55, even 60. I've got a lady who's 60, and they're African American women who obviously are based over in the US and going through menopause, perimenopause, and have struggled with weight sort of maybe all their life, really. A lot of emotional eating, a lot of traumas from the past, and just sort of helping those women come through that. And this might seem, a little bit corny. I hope it doesn't come across this way, but like my idols in life are older Black American women. So think Oprah, Michelle Obama, Ayanna Van Zandt, Lisa Nichols. Like growing up, they're the women that I looked up to. So now to be able to serve like women who are in that population is like such a blessing to me, you know.
And I think that's very, because we all need that inspiration to get us to that other side. Because I love, those women as well as inspiration, especially if you're growing up in an area and you don't see individuals that look like you, that do what they do. It's like, okay, how often? And same thing when, we go to the doctor. If you go to a doctor and you're seeing everybody that doesn't look like you, or a dentist that doesn't look like you, how can they relate to your body? Because our bodies are different. And a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to vitamins. The vitamins were ideally made for Caucasian people, it wasn't made for all races.
Yeah.
So when people typically take something, you hear, I don't see results, because they're taking it as it's suggesting.
Yeah.
But sometimes we may have to take a little more because our bodies are different than those individuals' bodies.
Yeah.
Um, I want to touch on for you, even though, the transition with your job, what was it that you said, what, I want to venture on my own instead of going back and finding another job in social work and working with domestic violence and working with kids? What was it for you?
Yeah, I think I sort of knew from the get-go that I wouldn't ever stay in social work, and the reason why is because over here especially, well, I'm sure everywhere else too, but I'm here, so like in the UK, so I know what's going on here, but the system is broken. It's not fit for purpose. It doesn't get to the root cause of the issue. You're firefighting, you're not really doing much. There's no real change being made. It's like an admin. You've got an admin job and you sort of go out and see people every so often. So I knew I was never going to stay in that. And then when I did get to a point where actually I was like, okay, I could sort of envision myself, getting back up again. I was like, I really want to get to the root cause of people's issues. And it's not like I've abandoned that social care side of things, because I haven't. I still work with the women that I work with on, you know, healing from trauma and healing the past, and, you know, creating a better life for themselves. So my sort of motto is transform your body, transform your life. You know, but yeah, I guess the domestic violence system over here is broken as well. It's so I describe myself as a womanist, and a womanist is a term coined by Alice Walker, who wrote The Colour Purple, and she sort of says womanism is to feminism as purple is to lavender. You know, the feminists really champion women's rights, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they exclude women of colour. You know, our rights don't actually get included in that narrative of feminism. And they also really, in my opinion anyway, they really sort of go hard against the men. Now, with womanism, the reason why I really resonate with womanism is because men are included. And I feel like actually we need men. We need to have a strong society based on the family. And, you know, men and women have different roles, and that's great. So yeah, I couldn't go back into a feminist organization knowing that they just tear down men and they don't really support women to be the best versions of themselves, you know. So that's really why I didn't go back into the domestic violence sector either.
Totally agree, because I think and I believe and I know that we have taken the roles of males out. I grew up before my dad died in a two-parent home, and my dad was the head. He worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she took care of the home and the family and everything. Um, and it just, you know, seeing how things are going now, where we're going half and half on bills, and you're married, or you're borrowing money from your spouse, and it's like you borrow money from your friends, not your spouse. Like, what? So we have lost track of what our roles are and what that looks like. And most times we've had to, women had to have to become independent and take on the masculine role. Totally understand that. But, sometimes we do also have to understand that God's purpose was for men to be the head
Yeah,
and for us to stand beside them, and not to beat them down. But,
yeah,
just definitely wanted to reiterate on what you were saying, because that is so true. Um, and that's pretty much, the same here with our system. It is broken, where I understand the ideal of placing kids back in the home with parents, because you want the parents to be a part of their lives. But 9 times out of 10, the parent still isn't ready and doesn't want the kids, and the kids end up hurt or dead or whatever the case is, or back in the system again, where you're confusing them when they could be
yeah,
in a loving home. So totally understand. I used to work in case management, so totally understand the system is broken in the US as well. Um, so how does your sessions go with clients, so people can get an ideal of working with you? What does that look like?
Mhm. So I actually offer three different services. So I've got a one-to-one coaching offer, a 12, which is 12 weeks, and then a group coaching offer, which is also 12 weeks. And I have like a membership, which I'm calling the Keep Me Curvy Self-Love Club. And I'll explain why it's called that in just a minute. But for the people who want like the coaching, they want that one-to-one or they want that group, it's based on a program that I put together. So it's a 7-step program, and if you're a one-to-one client, that's highly personalized. So you'll get your own fitness plan, you'll get your own meal plan. You know, we'll go through each topic at your own pace and really delve deep into you and what needs to happen for you. The group, I actually love group coaching, and I'm working with a group of men at the minute. So that's been interesting. But for women, it's the same sort of process. So I take you through the program, but in a much more structured way. And then you've got the support of the group as well. And then you go away, do your tasks at the end of the session, come back next week, get that accountability and that support. So that's the two sort of offerings for coaching. The women who've been through my coaching program, they've done amazing. They are absolutely shining, and they keep going. I think one of my ladies said it best. She said it's not about how much weight I've lost, even though she has lost a lot of weight. She says it's about how much confidence she's gained. And we've actually got a group retreat to the Dominican Republic coming up. So we're in December, we're going to be in the Caribbean, which I'm so excited about. Yes, it's amazing. And then yeah, so the self-love club. So when I sort of first came up with Keep Me Curvy, I didn't have a membership in mind, but I realised as I was working with my women that actually they wanted ongoing support after the programme ended, because it's only 12 weeks. And I never say lose £30, lose £50, lose 10. I never say that, because everybody's going to do its own thing. 12 weeks isn't a lot of time, and it's about getting the foundation right. So I'm not here to say, right, you're going to look this way when it ends, you're going to look that way when it ends. But what I will guarantee is that if you do everything that I say and you follow the programme, that you will be set up for life to eat well, to exercise well, and to keep the weight off. So that's the program. And then the self-love club is actually, it's a membership of women, so an online community of women who want to continue the journey and get that accountability and support going forward. So my 4 key principles are fitness, nutrition, self-love, and the power of the mind. Now, I don't believe we can do anything unless our mindset's right. So I'll take women through challenges, we'll do certain practices and different things just to get our mindset right. And then we'll go into the fitness side of things, the nutrition side of things. But underpinning all of that is self-love, because without self-love, you're not going to eat right. Without self-love, you're not going to work out. Without self-love, you're not going to believe that you can have what it is that you want. So there's a lot of work on self-love, self-image, self-esteem that goes on in the membership and in the 2 programs.
I love that, especially the part about the confidence. Kind of want to go more into that because I think for most women, it is an issue with confidence. It's an issue with self love. It's an issue with being authentic with themselves because they have this mask on and is trying to figure out who am I? I don't like this person. I don't like this size, but how can I figure out who I am? Because I've been this person for 40 years. I've been this person for 50 years. I've been this person for 60 years. So I guess my question is, I'm sure you've seen it where it comes where they start to truly figure out and self identify who I am. Can you kind of talk about that and what that looks like? And also for yourself, with your struggle with weight, not just with clients, but with yourself as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think the first thing is self-love is a bit of a buzzword now, right? Like it's everywhere. But for me anyway, a few years ago, I had no idea what self-love was. I didn't know the definition of self-love. I didn't know how to put it into practice. And when my clients come to me, they don't know either. So it's almost like getting back to the basics, like what is it? Like what is self-love? And that's what I really do. I help people define what it means and how to put it into practice. And, I've had amazing results with that, like women, like you said, who've been overweight for 40, 50 years, who actually look at themselves now and say, no, I deserve better. I want more for myself, because now I understand that I am worthy of love. I'm the only person who's going to love me how I want to be loved and how I deserve to be loved. First and foremost is myself. Like I've got one lady who, she's obviously a bigger lady, and she made me smile because she said for the first time ever, she took her clothes off and went into the mirror and told herself that she loves herself. Now, that
Okay.
might seem like, yeah, like it's a
That's,
big,
that's
yeah,
big. Yeah.
it's big, right? Yeah. And, I applaud her for doing that. I never asked her to do it. She got there on her own. So that was, yeah, amazing. In terms of me, like how I found my self-love again, I think when you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've been in a similar space to me, like in terms of like being suicidal and feeling like you don't want to be here anymore. Like that's the lowest place you can get, in my opinion. Like there is no further down than that. So it was really looking at myself and thinking, what do I like about myself? if I can't love myself yet, what do I like about myself, And I had to list all the things that I loved about myself and that I liked about myself. Like, I'm generous, I'm kind, I'm caring, my intentions are always pure and good. And I actually thought, you know what, actually, yeah, that's right. And that's to be celebrated. Even if I don't like the way that I look, I like who I am on the inside. And it started with that inner work first. So yeah, that's how I got there. And that's how I help my clients get there too.
And I think that's a big thing because I think a lot of people don't look at the positive, even if it's not how you look. It is, okay, I'm kind, I'm giving, I'm very caring, I have a big heart. Um, those things, I love people. Those things help you really start horning in on, wow, okay, if I'm doing all of this and I'm all this person, why am I not seeing the beauty in myself? And again, like you said, the buzzword self love, we hear that so often, but I don't really think people really get to the root of what self love is, because for me, it was, I loved myself, but I wasn't in love with myself.
Mhm.
And those are two different things, because you can love pizza, but you're not in love with pizza.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think those things have to be defined when it comes to the definition of self-love, because there's two versions. Do I love who I am? Am I in love with who I am, or am I in love with my looks? Am I in love with my body, or do I just love it? So totally different things. I think that's something that needs to be more talked about. And I definitely love that your client really started to see her worth and
Yeah.
started to confirm and affirm, you know what, I'm beautiful, I love who I am, and hey, keep doing it, because you have to do it, because we wait on other people to confirm and affirm us when it starts with us, because you're in a relationship and you're waiting on your partner to tell you, oh baby, I love that dress, I love your hair, and you may not get it.
Mm. No, you're right.
Yes. So you talked about meal plans. What does that look like for clients? Because we know everybody is on every area of food, where we have vegetarians, plant based,
Mhm.
Presbyterian, the list goes on and on and on. So for you, when you're creating those plans with clients, are you guys working together? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think I'm in quite a fortunate position actually when it comes to that, and I'd never really thought about it until now. So thank you. But I grew up eating meat, dairy, all the rest of it, and then I actually transitioned into being a vegetarian. So I was a vegetarian for 3 years. Then I was a complete vegan for 4 years. Around, I think about 4 years, and now I'm like, I was a pescatarian as well somewhere within there, so I only ate fish. And now I don't eat meat, so I definitely don't eat meat, but I will have a little bit of dairy sometimes. I will have some fish now and again. So I'm really well versed when it comes to people's different sort of requirements. So that's not a problem. I know how to make a high protein vegan meal plan. I know how to make a high protein pescatarian meal plan. That's never really been the issue. I don't recommend dieting. I'd never say go on keto,
Yeah.
but I say that, but then I've got clients, or I have like a few clients who are so determined to go on a diet. And obviously they're adult women, so you can do what you like. I'm not going to stop you. I can't stop you. But I will always give that advice and guidance around that and say, actually, this isn't the best way to do it. You can incorporate some carbs, like there are carbs that don't make you overweight, that do
Right.
give you energy. So yeah, I don't ban anything. Like, it's not like I'm saying low fat, low carb, nothing. The only thing that I do say is that our diet should be higher in protein, especially for women who are, menopausal, perimenopausal, because muscle loss starts to occur around that time, and we literally are what we eat. I don't think people realize that so much, but when we eat protein, it actually replenishes the muscle if you actually do strength training as well. It's the same with fat. Like, people are saying, oh, I want to do low fat, like I can't eat fat, and I'm like, no, fat's good for your hair, your skin, your nails, you know, your eyesight. Like, there's so many different benefits to eating all the food groups. So that's where I am with that, really.
I totally agree. When it comes to popular diets and it comes to counting calories, supplements, what like diet pills, things like that. It's a lot. I don't get in that as well because when it comes to, I think counting calories can be stressful and overwhelming because you're sitting up there and you're trying to figure out, well, how many is this? Did I get my points today? Did I overdo it? It's too much.
Yeah.
So totally agree with you on that. I'm gonna ask you 3 fun facts about
Mhm.
you. All right. The first one is, how do you provide yourself health and wellness, and what does that look like for you?
Okay, so I'm somebody who loves structure. If you can't tell already, I love structure. And at the minute, I'm actually doing my own challenge. So I've got the Keep Me Curvy Self Discipline is Self Love Challenge, and that's a 90-day challenge. So I'm on day 75 now, I think.
Oh
And what
wow.
that yeah, what that looks like for me is every day I do 7 different things, and this is like the basis for my health and wellness. So I drink 3 liters of water a day. I can't remember what that is in ounces, but I think it's like nearly 100 ounces. So I drink the water. I think that's so important. Like, our health depends on water, and again, that's something that most people don't really consider.
Right.
You know, I eat my whole foods. I don't eat ultra processed foods. I don't eat sugar. So if I do that, I get a tick, and I do that every day because that's just my lifestyle now. I work out for 45 minutes. I take my menstrual cycle into consideration. So if I'm on, you know, in that at that time of the month, then I don't work out those 3 days, and I sort of cycle my workouts around my menstrual cycle. Um, I also write out 3 things that I love about myself every day, and that keeps my mental health and my spiritual health strong. You know, I have time with God every day, and yeah, that's pretty much what I do, really.
And you touched on periods because I think a lot of people try to go to the gym and they try to work out. I don't either because you really, because you're bloated at that time. You have water retention also during that time, and you're not really going to see the great benefits. And I think it's essential to rest and relax and make sure you're eating foods high in nutrients because you are losing blood. So thank you for touching on that because I don't think I've ever had anybody on here that touched on that before. So thank you. um, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would that be and why?
Okay, so I've never been to the Caribbean, and I'm actually, well, I'm from the Caribbean. Like, my parents are from the Caribbean, but I've never been. And so we're going to the Dominican in December, so I'm so looking forward to that. But other than that, I would really like to go to Grenada, because that's where my granddad's from, and my granddad passed away in 2020, and we've got a really big family out there, so it'd be really great to get out there and just go and meet the family and, you know, enjoy the vibes.
I have some friends whose parents are from there, and definitely heard it's beautiful. I would love to go
Yeah.
myself to see what it looks like. Um, Favorite food. What is a your favorite food?
Oh,
And
favorite.
why?
Oh,
What is it about it that you're like, okay, I'm craving it, I gotta have it.
oh, it's so different. I don't have food cravings anymore. I've got rid of those now. And my relationship with food is so different than it used to be. Like, I don't have an emotional relationship with food anymore. Like, I don't crave anything. I don't put any food on a pedestal. You know, the first thing that came to mind was chickpeas, and only because I like roasted chickpeas. And I've got my niece is 2.5, and every time she comes to my house, she associates it with chickpeas. So she says, Auntie Chris, I want chickpeas. So I guess chickpeas. But in the past, you know, when I was bigger and I did have that emotional connection to food, I would have said, you know, macaroni cheese,
Oh
pizza,
well.
chips, cheesy fries. But no, now I don't have that emotional connection to food anymore. I enjoy all the food that I eat. It's all wholesome. It's all good for me, and it all tastes good. So
So, as you said that, I do want to touch on that for people who are having that emotional connection and that craving. Can you kind of talk about what was it that helped you change that so they can pinpoint, you know what, okay, I can change this because I don't want to feel like because I'm having a stressful day, I need to get a bottle of wine or I need to go to whatever restaurant and grab the greasiest, cheesiest burger and fries. So, can you kind of elaborate on how that worked for you?
yeah, so it was a process, and again, my program really goes into this process. It drills into it. It's not a quick fix, so it's not something that's going to happen overnight. For some people it might. For me, it didn't happen overnight, and it's something not to be ashamed about as well. Like if you are still in that place, do not shame yourself about it. First and foremost, like it's a normal response to what you've been through to be in that position. But for me, how I got out of the trap, the food addiction trap, the sugar addiction trap, I guess it starts when I was 19. So I used to be a smoker. So I started smoking so young, like ridiculously young. I was 11 when I started smoking cigarettes, and I didn't stop until I was 19. But I really wanted to stop along the years, and it's so hard. For anyone who's ever smoked cigarettes, you'll know how hard it is to stop. It's ridiculously hard. And somebody said to me, read this book, and it was called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. So
Mm.
I read the book, and at the end of the book, I didn't want to smoke. So he says in the book, he says, have your last cigarette. So I remember being 19, I had this cigarette in my hand, and he said, now you've got to smoke it. And I just didn't want to smoke it. And I smoked some of it, I put it out, and I was like, oh, that's it. And I'm 31 now, and I haven't smoked since. I've never desired to smoke since. So fast forward, and I've got all this weight on me. And I realised that the same author has got a series of books around weight loss. So he's got which books has he got? He's got The Easy Way to Lose Weight Now, and my personal favourite, which is Good Sugar, Bad Sugar. So anybody who knows me will know I always say if you are stuck in sugar addiction, which is sugar, like added sugars, sweets, that type of thing, fizzy drinks, but also white refined carbohydrates, pasta, pizza, bread. Read Good Sugar, Bad Sugar. Once you read that book, you don't want to eat it at the end of it. But so that's my tool to use, and I want everybody to just have that and read that. But I realized that wasn't the whole picture. So I fell back into the trap. I fell back into the trap, and I didn't know why I was still eating these foods. I knew I shouldn't be, and I'd read the book again and I'd stop eating it, but then I'd fall back into the trap, and I'd be like, well, what's going on? And I realized it was a few things. Number one, I wasn't aware of what the food industry were actually doing. So marketing draws us in, advertising draws us in. They hide sugar in absolutely everything, so that we keep going back for more. Things that shouldn't have sugar in because they know it hooks us. So it's almost like I was sabotaging myself without knowing I was sabotaging myself, because sugar's addictive. The more you eat, the more you want, even if you don't know you're eating it. Right. So I was like, right, okay, I need to understand what the sugar industry is doing, the food industry is doing that keeps me going back for more. Once I knew that, I knew how to avoid that. Then it was comes down to self-love again and self-preservation. Like we all know how harmful sugar is. It causes diabetes, it causes heart disease, it causes cancer. People are going blind from diabetes complications. I know people who've had their legs amputated because of diabetes complications. There's a statistic out there that says actually sugar and ultra processed food is the number one killer of people in the modern world, and it's taken over tobacco and cigarette smoking as that number one killer. So it comes down to like, how much do you love yourself? How much is your life worth? How much do you want to stay happy, healthy, and alive? And again, it's doing that healing work and that self-love work to actually get there. Like nobody could offer me this food now because I know it's going to harm me, and I'm not going to do anything to harm myself because I love myself. So they're the triad of three things that I would say you need to, number one, read the book to unravel the brainwashing, because that's what the book does. Then have a look at what the food industry is actually doing so you can avoid their traps, and then also have the self-love in place as well, so you don't want to do that to yourself anymore.
Can you give the name of the book again for people who are interested in getting it?
Yeah, so it's called Good Sugar, Bad Sugar, and it's by a man called Alan Carr. And actually, I've literally just had this thought today. So I'm doing a sugar addiction workshop, so where I talk about all the three things, the brainwashing, etc., etc. And I'll always recommend that book at the end. Um, but a lot of people can't get through the book, and I realise they can't get through the book because they're not aware yet that they need to. So it's really strange. I'll recommend it to people, and the people who have read it, the clients who have read it, that's it. They're on the way. They're ready to go. The clients who haven't read it yet are still struggling. You know, it's almost like they're saying, "Well, you know, I'm still craving, I'm still wanting," and I'm saying, "Well, just read the book." So I've got this free yourself from sugar addiction workshop coming up, and I'm thinking of doing a 5 day sprint where every day for five. This is just something I thought about today. So whether it happens or not, I don't know, but I want it to happen every day for 5 days. We will come together on like a Zoom, like as a group, and we'll have our cameras on or off, microphones off, and just have the book playing for an hour. So it's a 5 hour long audio book. And if we come together as a group and do it that way, we can have this book read in 5 days. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping to do, because people just aren't getting through it because, number one, they don't have the self love enough to. And I also find that people are resistant to it because they fear that they're going to lose a comfort, and they fear that they're going to lose a pleasure. And that's sometimes a barrier to reading the book.
All that is so true. And it's also, I always look at it is they're not ready. They're not there yet.
Mm.
And, you can't force somebody to be somewhere they aren't yet. And when they're ready, they'll make that transition. So, can you tell people what you have coming up and where they can find you?
Yeah. So I am just in the process of launching the Self Love Club. So the Self Love Club will be a community of women. Like I said, we'll look across the four key areas: fitness, nutrition, self love, and the power of the mind. And we'll come together, weekly and do different challenges, have like live meetups. So that'll be great. I'm really looking forward to that. That will be over on primarily I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to create like a Facebook community as well, but I'm not really well equipped with Facebook yet. So I am on Facebook again, Carrissa Kai, or at Keep Me Curvy on all platforms really. Group coaching and one-to-one coaching runs in cycles. So when the next cycle's like ready to start, I'll be putting adverts out. And then every so often, every 2 weeks, I have like a workshop, which is just open to anybody who can come along. They can learn about different things. Like this week's workshop is about sugar addiction and freeing yourself from sugar addiction. And so that's how people can sort of, come and get involved really.
Okay. Well, I thank you. I definitely have to commend you on what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing because we need more individuals who understand and have lived this life because we get so many people who haven't lived this life and they're doing it and they are extremely hard on individuals who are trying to get healthy,
Mm.
but you haven't walked in their shoes. So you're trying to put somebody where you haven't been. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. If it happened overnight, they wouldn't be contacting us.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed you, and you definitely educated me on some of these books. Definitely will inform some of my clients about it, as well as friends and family who are going through diabetes issues. Because I just lost an uncle last year, who previous years he got his leg amputated and did not leave the sugar and the
Mm.
unhealthy foods along, which took him to his grave. So
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you again. This is LeJune. You can find me at lejune.singleton.com. And until next time, this is Mind, Health, and Wellness with LeJune.